everybody, it's Jackie Williams, and in this video I want to show you just a few ideas of things you can do with your more solid, bold images or stamps. Now there's lots more than what I'm going to show you, but we'll just start with these three, and two of them are going to use Emboss Resist. So if you're not familiar with heat embossing, please check out my video on what that is first. And we're going to also be using only the Sweet Symmetry stamp set in these examples, but the techniques will translate to other stamp sets too. So let's go to my work desk. So this is the Sweet Symmetry bundle, and as you can see, it features solid images of flowers and leaves and then some fun scripty fonts. It also bundles with a border punch, which you can use as a border or just use these leaves punched out. It's really nice to have a punch that punches leaves to go along with your flowers. Now the first way you can use your solid image stamps is by doing an emboss resist technique using your ink pads and your blending brushes. So I have stamped the large flower, the stem, and these large leaves here down in the corner of my basic white, and I have white embossed that. So I've used Versamark and then white embossing powder over the top, and then heated it until it's gone shiny and is completely melted. So basically this is plastic that has been melted back down, so it will not absorb ink but rather resist ink. And I'm going to use Pool Party and Fresh Freesia. And I'll start with the Pool Party. And depending how wet your ink pad is, you may need to do quite a few layers. But in all honesty, after experimenting quite a bit with the blending brushes and actually various coloring techniques, I think it is better to do several light layers rather than one or two heavy layers. And you want to blend that blue out until it just fades into the white, so there's no harsh lines. Maybe one more layer here. My Pool Party ink pad is quite dry, and I'm leaving it that way because I find it easier to use the blending brushes with the more dry ink pad. Now my Fresh Freesia is still fairly new, so I'm going to just dab off that extra ink. And now I'm going to go over the top of my flower with the Fresh Freesia. And also resist the temptation to press really hard with your hand. Just give it a nice light layer. Then once your color is on, both colors, and you're happy with that, you'll notice that my flower looks a little bit purple. So just take a tissue and wipe that off, and you'll see that it becomes pretty white again. So that's how you get color in behind your image and also in those little grooves or the little blank spaces within your image. So here is my finished project. I have mounted that onto a card front, used a little strip of Pool Party Designer Series paper, and I've used the silver foil, which is 3 different kinds of silver in that pack, and one of them is actually quite purple, so it tones in pretty well with the Fresh Freesia. And then I've used the Thanks out of this stamp set and just scissor cut that around black, and then mounted that up on a little piece of the Pool Party sheer ribbon, which I pleated underneath. So it's a nice simple card, but I love these colors and it's a fun technique. For my next idea on different ways you can use your solid image stamps, I'm going to ink up my image with sponge daubers and use 3 different colors. So I have Blushing Bride, Smoky Slate, and Polished Pink. I'll just get those open and ready. So I'm going to actually ink up my image in Blushing Bride, and then I'll take my sponge dauber with the Polished Pink and just dab that on the edges of the flower, or the tips of the flower, I should say. And then I'll take my Smoky Slate and put that in here through around the center of the flower. Then you can kind of breathe on it a bit, or huff on it as we say, and that helps re-wet and blend those colors. And then you should get an image that looks something like this, where you've got the gray, the blushing bride, and the polished pink all showing. This is a great technique that you can use with any of your solid image stamps. So here is a finished project with that technique, and you can see that I use exactly those same colors, the smoky slate, blushing bride, polished pink, and then I used my scissors and cut out the flower and did the same thing with the leaves, smoky slate, soft succulent, evening evergreen, and then cut those out. And this was a fun one. I've already put this one on my blog if you want to see more pictures, and this one's got a little pocket inside. So let me show you actually how you'd make that pocket. This is an old technique, one that I did years and years ago and many times. What you're going to do is take an envelope and seal it up, and then you're going to fold it in half with the flap inside, and then make that nice and flat. Then you're going to grab your trimmer, and these two folded edges you're going to slide into your trimmer and just cut both of those open like this. And then that gives you the two pockets here. So you're just going to adhere those together and then inside the little pocket inside your card. So you see how this piece here is just an envelope. So there's no extra cutting of pieces or measuring anything involved. Now for our third idea on using your solid image stamps. This time I have white heat embossed again. This time I have it on watercolor paper. And I also wanted to show you another tip. If you want to stamp a pattern, there's no reason why you can't just put all of the images you want to use all on one block and then just stamp it multiple times. So you would stamp it this way, and then I would turn it, 90 degrees and then maybe 40 degrees and just keep rotating it. And then it doesn't look like you're just stamping the same stamp over and over, but it's just much easier and quicker that way. So I have stamped that in Versamark and then put white embossing powder over the top and heated it till it was melted. So again, it's like it is melted plastic on the top, so it will resist any ink that we put on it. So because this is watercolor paper, it is 100% or virtually 100% cotton. So that means we can get it really wet and it will accept that. So I have a spritzer bottle here of just water. So I'm just going to get my paper wet. That's just going to help the ink move a little bit easier as we go along. And then I want to share with you another tip that I saw throughout the week. One way to make watercoloring a little easier, particularly if you're doing background, what we call a watercolor wash, is use your water painter, fill it with water or almost full, and then actually just add some drops of the color you want to use. And then as you paint, just the color's already there and it's nice and smooth, it's already nice and diluted, and it just makes it nice and easy. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to try something a little bit different for this one, different than the sample I'm going to show you. I'm actually going to use crumb cake, and we're going to make more of a neutral colored card. So I have got crumb cake in this water painter, and I'm just going to give this card a crumb cake background wash. Now, one of the fun things about doing watercolors is some of the colors, which interesting they call vagabond colors, actually separate when they get wet. And you can kind of see that already, I think, where you can see bits that look almost a little green and bits that look a little bit brown. I love that. It's just a fun effect. So on that note, I recommend that when you're using diluted inks or inks with water, that you finish what you want to paint, let it all dry, and then choose your matching accessories and cardstocks and things, because this may match a different color than what the ink is that you used once it's separated like this, if that makes sense. So what you want to do is let this dry pretty well. I'm going to take this over to the heat tool just to speed things up for the video. So one thing I've learned over the years is you don't necessarily want it to be bone dry. You just want it to be pretty dry. So if it's still just a little bit wet, then your second color will blend a little better with the first color, if that's the look you're looking for. So in this aqua painter, I actually have soft suede ink. So this is a darker brown. And I'm going to use that to just color in roughly my flowers, and maybe just a little bit around the flowers and my leaves. I've changed my mind. I'm actually just going to create like a cascade, and then I'll blend the colors out. I wonder if you realize how much I'm actually experimenting when I do these videos. So that will blend a bit more as it dries, but if you are concerned that it's too dark, you can always pull back your lighter color, your crumb cake water painter, and just kind of blend out those edges too. That's actually working quite well. I actually really like how this is turning out. All right, so then you can let that sit for about, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. It depends how wet your paper is, or I'm going to take it over to the heat tool. There we go. Now you can even add another layer. At this point you can add color if you want to, but I'm going to keep this one neutral. And this time I'm actually going to use my Stampin' Write markers, and I'm just going to put a little color in the middle of these. And don't panic, I'll show you what I'm doing here shortly. Now these are the Stampin' Write markers, which means they're water-based. And that means I can take my water, I'm just going to grab my crumb cake one, or you could get a clear one, and I can continue to move it, because when your ink is water-based, when you add water to it, that means it's going to bleed, blend, move, however you want to say it, but you can use that to your advantage. So that's another way you can use your Stampin' Write markers or your water-based markers, is use them for watercoloring. Now once the intensity is to your liking, you can grab your little tissue again and just wipe those off so they're nice and white. Now if you'd like to, you can then also take a marker of any color. I'm going to use Early Espresso, and using the thick end and your cap, just create a few splatters in through there. And there we go. I'm quite happy with that. I love how that has turned out. Now I will finish this one and put that up on my website, so be sure and check there. And this is the one that I did earlier, and you can see it's exactly the same technique but completely different colors. Here I've used Pool Party and Rich Razzleberry and Blackberry Bliss and Bumblebee. But like I was mentioning earlier, even though I used Pool Party here, once I had diluted it and watercolored it, this paper is actually Mint Macaron, which matched much better. So the colors do shift a little bit once you watercolor with them. And then this sample is using the exact same technique, but just a much simpler version. And again, I just mounted the 2 leaf stamps and the words all on one stamp. So this is like one giant stamp when you stamped it. And this time I used gold embossing powder and just did a very simple card, perfect for probably like a teenager or somebody who has achieved something. I thought it was just a nice saying. And this project is the one that I created for the Sweet Symmetry tutorial collection, which is a collection of 12 tutorials by 12 different designers. And you can get this free during November 2021 with an order of me of $50 New Zealand or more, or you can purchase it for $22.50 New Zealand dollars. And all of that is on my website, or the link is right below this video. And then here's some other projects. These are ones that I did not personally make. This was a birthday card from one of my friends, and this is one of those fun fold cards. And then here is another one using a fun fold card technique as well. So just a fun little gatefold, or little variation on a gatefold. So there you have it. I hope you got some good ideas on how to use both the Sweet Symmetry stamp set and some different ways to use your solid images. Please subscribe while you're here and hit the little bell so you get notifications when I put up a new video, and I'll see you next time. This is Jackie. Bye-bye.